welcome to coverage of the Magic Online Championship. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Luis Scott Vargas and Randy Buehler. We're underway for our second semifinal match of the day. Lars Dam. There he is. He dominated this. He has so far dominated this entire competition, and he's looking to finish strong today with 2 more match wins and a victory. But he has the returning champion, Dmitriy Butakov, who is standing in his way. It looks like play is underway. And what kind of starts are we looking at here? It looks like a pack rat beginning here from Lars Dam. How good is that versus Dmitriy?
It's at its worst in this matchup. I mean, because Dmitriy has access to Supreme Verdict and Detention Sphere, which are both pretty good at sweeping away rats.
Right.
But, Lars did mulligan to 6 this game. When you mulligan, you're not always too unhappy to just try to steal a game off pack rat, though. If you look at Dmitriy's hand, he's got all the answers. He's, in fact, not even killing the pack rat with Last Breath. He's not that concerned.
Wow.
I think that he wants to make sure that something like an Underworld Connections doesn't resolve here. So the only downside to this line of play that Budkov has taken is that by keeping up Syncopate on turn 2 or your turn 3, you're now going to have to tap out for Detention Sphere on the rats. So you're going to give Lars an opening anyway, and Lars is actually going to take it to resolve an Erebos, which is one of the better threats against the blue-white deck.
Wow, that's a big deal, especially considering that the Detention Sphere, is now on the rat and not going to be on the Erebos.
Yeah, would you have Last Breath for the rat there so that you can save Detention Sphere for something else, like, for example, Erebos?
I think so. You give up the 2-for-1, because,
Right. He did get a 2-for-1 by playing it this way.
there. But if you Last Breath turn 2, the best thing Lars can do turn 3 is to just cast like an Underworld Connections, but then you still have a Detention Sphere for that.
Right.
Now, this is interesting. It looks like Lars has gone for a Desecration Demon instead of an Erebos here.
Yeah, that is more of an obvious threat. It takes less mana, so I think given that he drew it, I think it's a good thing to play.
Okay. So he's just being more direct. And here's Jace, Architect of Thought now for Dmitriy, revealing Elspeth, another Jason, and Island.
Yeah, my guess is it gets split into Elspeth versus Jace here, or versus the other two here. And if I'm Dmitriy, I think I just take the Elspeth. So looks like that is what happened. What Dmitriy doesn't know is that Lars drew his 1 Sire of Insanity. It's in his hand. And
is it really?
If that resolved, that's really, really tough for Esper to beat.
And he's only 1 turn away, so if Dmitriy goes for some big play that leaves him vulnerable.
Like Elspeth?
And if Lars draws a land.
The only good thing about Elspeth is
she at least kills the Sire.
Yeah, she is an answer. So
not before it triggers, though, right?
No, it triggers on end step, so...
Lars is, he's running out all his threats. This is exactly how you want to play against Esper. He hasn't drawn very much dead removal. He got to pitch a Hero's Downfall to Pack Rat. He's, slamming threat after threat. Dmitriy has 2 counterspells in hand. He's just not going to have opportunity to use them.
All right, so here's Elspeth. Now, assuming he's going to make tokens here because those deal with the Desecration Demon fairly well.
Yeah, so this actually puts Dmitriy in an okay spot against Sire of Insanity. Because Lars, first of all, has to draw the land, which he did not. But even if he had, playing Sire into Elspeth does lead to Sire just getting destroyed. So it's one of the few situations where Sire of Insanity is not insane against Esper.
Right. Now, is Dmitriy, is he open to Bile Blight here a little bit?
He definitely is. This is one of the biggest downsides now that Bile Blight's been printed to this line of play against Desecration Demon is that you get your soldier tokens Bile Blighted before combat. Desecration Demon just kills Elspeth.
Now, lucky for Dmitriy, though, Lars doesn't have it, but he does have a Grey Merchant of Asphodel. That's going to be a nice chunk, and it is going to, of course, kill a soldier, but it's going to turn on Erebos.
Which kills another soldier. And so Elspeth's actually somewhat hard-pressed here. This is kind of a stalemate where Elspeth makes 3 tokens and 3 tokens die every turn, but except now when it looks like Dmitry's just killing the demon.
Yes.
But with an Erebos in play, Lars can just draw extra cards at will.
So does Dmitriy want Lars to activate his Mutavault to try to attack Elspeth here? Looks like he might not need to.
So this is a kind of tough spot since you have the Last Breath. So you could let Devour Flesh resolve and then Last Breath the Grey Merchant. But if Lars plays around a removal spell, which he probably will by attacking with Mutavault, you could end up losing Elspeth. So I think I like this play. I think it's conservative, but I think you have to keep your Elspeth alive at all costs.
Okay.
And this could work out actually really well for Dmitriy, since if Lars just goes ahead and Hero's Downfalls Elspeth right now, then Dmitriy gets to syncopate it and keep his Elspeth around. He's still a little behind because there is an Erebos there, but given how far behind he could have been, this is actually decent.
So Lars has two decisions. He can either just attack, force a chump block, and then go for the Hero's Downfall, or he can activate Mutavault and attack with both and hope that Dmitriy doesn't have Azorius Charm or Last Breath or something along those lines.
Or Doomblade. So
Doomblade, yeah, it's
it's
pretty risky.
Do you want to play around Syncopate, Dissolve, or Negate? I mean, they know deckless at this point.
Right.
Or do you want to play around Doomblade, Azorius Charm, or Last Breath? So
right. It's not easy.
It's pretty close, like numbers-wise, both halves. I think the tiebreaker for me is that getting Mutavault killed is actually really bad for Lars here. So I think I would make the play that doesn't put my Mutavault into danger.
Now,
so you would Hero's Downfall Elspeth?
I think I probably would Hero's Downfall Elspeth, yeah.
Would you upkeep do that?
Yeah, if you're going to do that, you're better off doing it on the upkeep. Because at this point, either counterspell works, so you might as well make Dmitriy tap his mana during his turn.
Right.
And Lars has the other option of just using Erebos, but if he was going to do that, he should do it main phase to try to draw a land.
Right. And he's not going to do that, and let's see if we see that upkeep stop. Yeah, it looks like Dmitriy, he flirted with the idea of using Last Breath now, but decided not to. So here's the upkeep Hero's Downfall targeting Elspeth, but Syncopate's going to take care of that. And there's that Jace. So things looking pretty good for Butakov here, as he's going to have two Planeswalkers in play, though Lars does still have some amount of pressure with two creatures, essentially with the Mutavault, and also, of course, Erebos looming over there, ready to draw him a bunch of cards. Uh-oh.
And that was a pretty good flip. I mean, hitting two removal spells, one of which hits Mutavault, even though it's dead against every other card in the deck.
Right.
And then, most importantly, Revelation. Though what
Lars needs to go land Sire of Insanity.
Exactly. What Dmitriy doesn't know is that Revelation's a little worse than it would normally be against that Sire.
Land Sire.
Wow.
If Dmitriy gets to untap, well, so he took Rev, right? So he does.
Yes. And he even played his land untapped so he can play Last Breath. Wow, Lars did draw a land, and it is an untapped Blood Crypt here. He's got to be a little concerned.
How many Syncopates in the list that are even being bluffed here?
Do you just go for it here?
I think you have to. I mean, Revelation's coming next turn, so if you wait on Sire, what good does it get you? Also, if you play Sire now, you can then start using Erebos main phase next turn and trying to play the cards you draw immediately.
Yep.
Also, Elspeth is going to kill Sire. At least if you play Sire now, it forces Dmitriy to lose
dies
Elspeth.
in the process.
Right. So Dmitriy can actually just wait a turn, +1 it, then minus it. But Sire still at least kills Sphinx of Revelation plus the other card in Dmitriy's hand. Though that is going to just trade for the Grey Merchant since he's got nothing better to do with it now.
Sigh of relief there for Lars, as it wasn't Syncopate, but he does get rid of Sphinx's Revelation.
This is still not looking great for Lars.
That's right. I mean, if he got Syncopated there, it'd be really bad.
Backbreaking.
Wow, right off the top.
Yeah.
Lars goes, yeah, I know.
So
brutal. So Detention Sphere is going to take care of that Sire of Insanity.
Are we sure that was better than getting the Erebos and using Elspeth to kill Sire?
My guess is I would have just killed the Erebos.
That Erebos, Lars is on 27 life. He can draw 13 cards. I mean, he's going to start getting beat up by soldier tokens, but...
Interesting.
I mean, Dmitriy is getting to attack here. He even gets to +1 Jace to draw cards off it next turn, but if you plus Elspeth, you can then minus Elspeth next turn to kill Sire.
Right, exactly.
And I think Erebos is one of the cards that can get Lars back into the game. Granted, Dmitri's still very far ahead here.
He's found himself in that desirable position to being one Sphinx's Revelation away from just blowing this game out of the water, and way far ahead on board as well.
Yeah, and Jace flipping a negate, which is, I think, the best card here. A little bit of a party foul here. Dmitri's playing two different versions of Last Breath in his deck.
All right, and the tokens keep piling up, and those are going to overrun Lars very quickly here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the advantage of Dmitri's line, where he used the Detention Sphere on the
smash.
Sire, he deals damage a lot faster.
Yeah, I mean, I can buy it. I think my inclination would have been to just Sphere the Erebos and just play for the longer game, but this does end things very quickly. But here you have a little bit of the drawback where if Lars can rattle off a bunch of Grey Merchants, then he can potentially stabilize.
And there's negate on Hero's Downfall.
Prompting a concession.
Wow, and that's going to do it. Dmitriy Butakov wins the first game, and he's one game away from finding himself yet again in the finals of the Magic Online Championship here. He's our returning champion.
And that was again a pretty fast game. I mean, when Esper wins in a fast game, Elspeth is usually involved.
So why don't we take a look at the sideboard plans for these players here?
And as is normal, the Black Devotion deck does get a lot better post-board against Esper.
Okay.
I mean, getting to take out all your dead removal spells for cards like Sire of Insanity, Slaughter Games. Like these
Only the one Slaughter Games?
Yeah, just the one Slaughter Games, which is...
And a second Sire?
It's funny, Eric played just the one Slaughter Games in Cincinnati, and then later said he wishes he had really had two.
Yeah, the other list that we saw in Cincinnati had 4 Slaughter Games in the sideboard. It was like, I am going to play Slaughter Games on turn 4. I am going to strip all the Sphinx's Revelations out of your deck. And that Slaughter Games that's what you do with it, by the way, if you're wondering how this plays out.
Right.
It's uncounterable. You name Sphinx's Revelation, and if these decks go long, if the Esper deck doesn't have Sphinx's Revelation, then Mono Black is better in the long game.
It is.
Yeah.
Underworld Connections, Erebos, it's got the better long game other than that specific card, Sphinx's Revelation.
Yeah, once they can't draw 7 cards in the middle of the game,
Yeah.
you know? Because
what kind of changes things.
What Esper's counting on is trading, 1-for-1 most of the time, sometimes even 2-for-1ing itself, but
Right.
then drawing a million cards, and Rev changes into another Rev. So
Exactly.
All right, so let's take a look at Dmitriy Butakov's sideboard here. What does he do?
And Budkov is just, fine-tuning the numbers, putting in the right removal spells, revoke, negate, that sort of thing. Dark Betrayal is a lot better than Doomblade, for example.
Okay, so it looks like players are ready to go. Why don't we head back down to the feature match area here as play is just getting
Dmitry
underway.
took
I
a
saw
mulligan
some
and
mulligans.
Dmitry took 1 mulligan, but then kept a 1-lander at 6.
And not only a one-lander, planes.
Yeah.
So there's no spells in his deck that he can cast off 1 planes.
Yet I see an island on the table here, so
Interesting.
First draw phase worked out.
Lars has a kind of interesting decision here. He has 3 lands total, but one of the lands in his hand comes into play tapped, and he has all 3 drops. I like just playing the pack rat here, and he just hopes to draw a 3rd land, I guess. I mean, worst comes to worst, he can play a
Yeah,
tapped
you can just
land.
play. Well, you can also play a pack rat. You can play
Yeah.
2 mana for the second actual copy of pack
It's like
rat.
discarding a pack rat to make a pack rat, except
Right,
you only
yeah.
cost 2.
right. So
Yeah,
he-
it's like a 1 mana discount.
he did actually draw a land, but unfortunately for him, it's Temple of Malice that's going to enter the battlefield tapped here.
And
I see another land was drawn there for Dmitry, so things
Yeah.
working out okay for him as he does have at least access to most spells color-wise. He still needs double white if he's going to Supreme Verdict, which might come up here, though it looks like Detention Sphere
Detention
can also
Sphere is
do
going to
it.
come
yeah,
up
I
first.
actually didn't like
Wouldn't
that.
you much rather use the Supreme Verdicts on the rats? I mean, there's a lot of pesky permanents
The
floating
problem is
around for Mono
he
Black.
doesn't know if
doesn't
he's
have
going to
the
get a second
second
white. And I actually didn't
That's
like
what I'm saying,
that
yeah.
play last turn where he thought about syncopating it. I think you just snap, let it resolve.
Yeah,
like,
agreed.
You should know at this point that you're going to Detention Spirit.
Right.
And signaling that you have a syncopate is actually, something that gives up value. Of course, Dmitry did have to tap out, and Lars has a lot of threats in his hand. I mean, this is similar to last game, where Dimitri's going to be on the back foot, but this game Dmitry has less lands and no Elspeth, so it's going to be a little harder. Like, we're going to see a Night Veil Spectre kind of go to town here.
There's another land off the top for Lars Dam, and he's got double Erebos in his hand. And also, if he just wants to increase the clock, he
By
can do
attacking
so
for
with
10 with the 2 Erebos, or
that also works. He's also got Lifebane Zombie, too.
he's also got free islands. Free islands are nice.
Ah.
I don't think Dimitri's mana is... He's gotten to 4, but he doesn't have a second white, and he doesn't have a first black.
Yeah, he looks like blue-white control here. One of the
Yeah.
advantages of blue-white is it plays a bunch of basics. That's not exactly how Esper wants to play out.
Yeah, so here's Syncopate for Erebos. He's tempted not to because he's got the Revoke Existence in his hand.
That's true. He is tempted low.
Yeah, he
doesn't
clicked the
know
Syncopate,
Yeah.
and then now he's still thinking... Looks like he is going to...
I actually don't hate syncopating here, even though you have revoke. You have so many targets for revoke, and just getting to use syncopate, especially when you've already basically telegraphed it,
Right.
and when Lars is hitting more land drops and you might not hit land drops.
Yeah, he might not, but
Yeah,
he hasn't
or
missed
he
one
might.
yet.
Oh, Temple of Enlightenment. That's a good draw.
Yeah.
He bottoms a Detention Sphere.
Well, it's going to get hit by Night Veil Spectre, so
Oh, right.
I think I might leave it on top just so Spectre hits guaranteed something that's not that good. I
True.
mean, the Scrylands against Night Veil Spectre are always kind of weird.
Right.
But, I mean, Spectre's going to be coming in here, I'm sure.
Problem is, what if the Ninth Veil Spectre hits some white mana?
Yeah. Well,
He's already got the blue.
There aren't that many good targets for Detention Sphere.
He
I
finds
guess.
Pithy Needle.
Yeah, I mean, he just...
Yeah,
Yes,
you'd rather
Spectre.
have him have a Detention Sphere there.
Yeah, I mean, that is why I would have left it on top, I think, just because it's kind of harmless at this point.
Oof, and now this Duress is just going to resolve.
Duress plus Needle is a good combo, too, though. Dmitry does not have anything, obviously, to name.
Right. But Lars does know about, I mean, because is there an argument for Lars to try to get this Bithynian on the table sooner than later, just in case he were to lose the Night Veil Spectre?
Yeah, definitely. I think he wants to run it out. I would
Name Elspeth.
name Elspeth because it's the bigger threat than Jace generally. I would not name Mutavault even though Dmitriy has one because you have your own and you have a lot more.
Right. Yeah, I think I would name Elspeth. And I think I would go ahead and play it because of the Supreme Verdict. He's one white away. Like, you got to duress Sphinx's Revelation here, right?
That is my guess.
He takes
He took
Revoke.
Revoke.
He wants to get Erebos online.
Wow. That's interesting.
I guess Erebos has no direct answer right now, so you can just play Erebos. Then you're not worried about the rest.
You're leaving your opponent to Sphinx's Revelation, though?
I guess it's only for 2. I mean, if Dmitriy doesn't draw a land.
True.
Dimitri's going to draw land.
Yeah, well. Yeah, this doesn't seem unreasonable. There aren't that many options. I would just play the Needle here just to make sure
In
you
fact,
get
he's going to pay 2
value.
life for Blood Crypt in order to do it.
Yep,
Yeah.
he is. Now, Erebos is only 1 black mana symbol away from being active next turn as well, and he's got it in his hand. So,
Yeah, the Lifebane plays into
He named
a
Jace
Supreme
Architect
Verdict,
of Thought.
but it does let you hit for 5 with Erebos.
He named Jace, by the way, not
Yeah.
Elspeth.
he named Jace. Okay, and there's a Dark Betrayal off the top, so Dmitriy did not hit the land drop that he
and
wanted
he has to
here.
cast a Rev here.
He's going to.
Yeah, and just main phase.
Oh, he's just running out the Verdict. All right.
So he doesn't want to take extra damage here from Erebos.
Yeah, I guess with only 1 card left in Lars's hand, you can just assume there's not more creatures coming out, and you don't want to get hit by Spectre again.
Yeah, you don't want to get hit by
This is a tough
Spectre,
spot.
and you don't want to get hit by Erebos and Spectre, especially with Erebos on the battlefield here.
That Underworld Connections was a nice draw.
Oh,
Yes.
yes. Wow. So
And a
you-
Lifebane zombie.
Yeah, so you are going
Erebos
to
is
get hit by
active.
Erebos here, as Erebos is now a 5/7 indestructible. And remember, Erebos says you can't gain life, so that Sphinx's Revelation is not going to get Dmitriy out of this as far as life gain goes. He might draw enough answers, but the clock is very, very quick here. In fact, he can kill him next turn.
Yeah, this is actually lethal. He's gonna have to. Dimitri's gonna have to like chump with Mutavault. I mean, it's possible Lars doesn't attack with his own Mutavault, but given that it's lethal now, it seems like he's gonna want to do that.
Right, and remember, he gets to draw extra cards off Underworld Connections to try to find like a Gray Merchant or something along those lines as well. Things are closing in pretty quickly on Dmitriy Butakov. He's up a game already, though, so this would be to force game 3. Double land in hand here for Lars. He's going to actually just activate Erebos here in the main, and he's going to find a Desecration Demon, which he can cast.
Yeah.
He's not going to first main it, though. He's going to battle. This does leave Lifebane Zombie vulnerable, which means that Erebos can then get turned off here, but it doesn't look like Dmitriy actually has a way to instant speed do that. So chump block it is.
And cycle Revelation potentially.
Didn't even bother.
Interesting.
Wow. And here's Desecration Demon. I think we're going to see a concession here from Dmitriy pretty quickly.
Revoke
Actually, he
is
drew a
not-
Revoke existence.
Not good enough.
Okay.
Oh, and Revoke and Dark Betrayal
Yeah,
is
because
good enough.
he can revoke the Erebos, Dark Betrayal, the Demon,
Interesting.
and still technically be alive, though getting hit down to 1 by Mutavault plus Lifebane Zombie.
Right.
Which is, again, still a pretty bad position.
It is, but that's not a concession.
Better
at
than
least.
dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Dmitriy actually has to think whether he has any outs from that position. If he doesn't, there's no reason to show the second Revoke. Not that it's a secret. Lars is going to know Dmitri's boarding in multiple Revokes.
Right. If the deck lists were not known, you'd be seriously contemplating a concession here. The fact that the deck lists are known means play it out even for the like .something% chance.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if this was in the Swiss, then I probably would just scoop here, since your odds of winning are less than the odds that giving them that information matters. But given that Lars presumably already has access to all this information, you might as well try, even though you aren't going to win this game.
There's a Sire of Insanity as well for Lars, just in case.
Yeah, I like the Mutavault activation anyway.
Yeah. He knows about the Dark Betrayal. It was there from the duress, I'm pretty sure. There was no black mana at the time, but Temple's come down since
Demon's going to eat a Dark Betrayal here. And that's going to be 5 damage hitting Dmitriy Butakov. He does have the ability to gain life now, though he needs to gain a lot.
And Sire of Insanity is going to come down.
And that should do it.
Jeez.
Elspeth on 5, so can't cast it. And the game ends. So we're going to get a game 3 here.
Yep.
As Lars evens things up against our returning champion, Dmitriy Butakov. Lars, again, he dominated this tournament really from day one, and he's looking to finish strong here.
Dimitri's fiddling with his sideboard. I see the syncopates going out.
That's interesting because I think you like Syncopate better on the play than you do on the draw generally.
He's putting the ultimate prices back in.
Well, I mean, ultimate price has always been fine against the black deck.
How many did he start? They were both in the sideboard for that game.
It's interesting. It looks like he takes out Aetherling.
Yeah.
Huh. I normally do not do that against the black deck. So
Wow,
it looks like he's just looking to win the game with Elspeth only. All right.
Yeah, he put 2 Supreme Verdicts in his sideboard too.
Yeah, Supreme Verdict, I mean, it's a removal spell, but it's a little clunky. And when your opponent's on Sire of Insanity,
Right.
Erebos,
Right.
Underworld Connections, all these cards that don't interact with it, then it's reasonable. So it looks like Lars did mulligan to 6 here. And this time Dmitriy has all the colors of mana that he needs.
All right, tap land for Lars kicks things off, but on Dmitry's side, he's run back-to-back scry lands, so he's going to be able to sculpt his draw nicely, and his hand looks pretty darn good here.
Yeah, he kept Supreme Verdict on top with the first one. And the second one, I think he pushed a land.
Okay, and there's a pack rat on turn 2 for Lars Dam. So something to answer here for Dmitry. He just calmly plays the land, ships a turn back. That brings us back to Lars, who's got a pretty nice hand himself. Double Night Veil Spectre plus the long game plan with Underworld Connections, and he even has a Hero's Downfall to deal with anything pesky as far as Planeswalkers go down the line.
And Dmitry has consistently not used a removal spell on Pack Rat, instead opting to leave Syncopate up. This is the second time he's done this. So
I mean, every time it's come up, he has had a sweeper. He's been trying to play for card advantage
Exactly.
and leaving up Syncopate.
I mean, this is a good hand for Dmitry. He's missing lands. He only has up to 4, and he really wants to hit 6 on 6. But otherwise,
He pushed a land, though.
Otherwise, that's interesting.
Yeah, he used it. He had 4 on turn 2, and he pushed.
I guess on turn 2, it's very different than on turn 4, though. Like
Sure.
he wants to see those additional 2 spells first. But I mean, this is the ideal hand. I guess you don't want Rev this early, but having Ultimate Price Syncopate Supreme Verdict, you have early interaction. There's not much more you can ask for.
All right, 1 damage from the pack rat, and Lars is just going to pass the turn after playing a Mutavault. So he's not going to play into Supreme Verdict here by playing out either another pack rat or a Night Veil Spectre. He's going to put the onus back on Dmitriy Butakov to do something. And it looks like Dmitry is going to decline that. He's just going to play a land and say go. He's like, look, you got to do something.
Yeah, Dmitry's content just to pass. Lars also...
Yeah, Lars didn't want to set up a Supreme Verdict or a Detention Sphere there. He was going to wait for end step to make that second pack rat.
Though this is getting a little tough for Dmitry. If he's going to miss his next land drop, then having double Rev and Elspeth in hand is really not where he wants to be.
So 2 pack rats hit the red zone there.
And my guess is that Lars continues to just not make a rat main phase, just to deal 4 damage, pass the turn, and force Dmitry to tap out to answer the rats, after which his follow-up is Underworld Connections or Night Veil Spectre, both of which are pretty good threats.
Yeah, Lars has been playing around Permission really well.
That is not a land, by the way. It is Detention Sphere, but he's going to opt for the Supreme Verdict to clear away the rat problem here, but not a land. He's missing lands. Now all of a sudden Dmitry's stuck with 6 cards in hand and not a lot going on.
Yeah, I think this is decent. That Thoughtseize was a really good draw, though. Because if Lars didn't have the Thoughtseize, then Dmitry would be able to Detention Sphere the Underworld Connections that it looks like is going to come down and kind of be back in the game plan he wants. Instead, Thoughtseize is almost assuredly going to take Detention Sphere because it leaves Dmitry with 2 Revs and Elspeth, all of which cost 1,000,000 mana.
And Lars has enough mana here to, well, he's going to start with Thoughtseize.
Yeah, he can still go land Underworld Connections, draw a card afterwards.
Yeah.
If
He has to
that's what
pay
wants
3
to.
life, but it's still, I mean, he's at 20. He's playing against a deck that doesn't attack his life total. And once you know about Syncopate, it gets a lot weaker, too.
So Lars is writing down.
Is the back-to-back dream going to end here? I feel like Lars, with this last flurry, these last couple turns, is
Lars is ahead
suddenly
here.
moved into control of this game.
If Dmitry draws an untapped land and can play a land, Rev for 2, untap, play a land, play Elspeth, that could be a pretty big swing.
Sure.
But it all starts with an untapped land. Well, if he draws a Detention Sphere, or a Revoke off the top to deal with Underworld Connections, Lars does not have infinite gas. He basically just has a Night Veil Spectre in terms of threats.
Yeah, he's got a Night Veil Spectre, he's got an Underworld Connections. We think he's going to play the Underworld Connections after this Thoughtseize.
Yes, that is my assumption. Just getting the free card now seems like it's a lot better.
Yeah, that's how I would play it also.
Paying the life doesn't indicate that one or the other, though, because that is how he'd have to cast Night Veil Spectre. But
Night Veil does dodge the ultimate price, so
Yeah, ultimate price not looking.
Dmitriy doesn't have an answer to
spectacular.
either in his hand. Yeah, you go Underworld Connections. Top deck's Thoughtseize.
A little late for that one.
I
mean,
still cast it.
It's
He
it's
is
still
going to get the Night Veil Spectre.
It's still fine, but at this point, Dimitri's missing land drops, and Lars is drawing 2 cards a
Yeah,
turn. So
no, this is definitely bad for Dmitriy.
This is falling way behind for Dmitriy here.
Sees Night Veil and Hero's
I
Downfall.
mean, at what point does he start just firing off those Sphinx's Revelations for the minimum?
I think if he misses his land next turn, he's got to really think long and hard about firing off a Rev for 1.
Leave up Syncopate and then probably do it end step.
If he hits his land drop, then he's pretty happy though. That's his best. I mean, I guess he'd rather draw Revoke or Detention Sphere to kill Underworld Connections than hit a land drop. But either way, that's what he's looking for. If he draws, an uncastable 6-drop or another removal spell, then that's really, really not good for him.
All right, so it's going okay from Dmitry's end, though, as Lars has just found a couple of extra lands, building up his mana base, but he doesn't have any threats right now outside of Mutavault.
This happens sometimes with the Black Devotion deck.
It does.
Yeah, I mean, Lars, can potentially draw a handful of like Hero's Downfalls, and even though he's taken out most of the, kind of useless removal, you still end up stuck a little overloaded on it. You can't side everything out. And Hero's Downfall is good against Elspeth and Jace, but right now, Dmitry would rather Lars just draws all Hero's Downfalls.
Right.
He's looking at a Lifebane Zombie with that Scry trigger.
Which is...
It is a
He's
threat.
going to put it on top, it looks like. Oh, he's thinking? No, bottom?
It's a threat. It's probably
Bottom.
one of your worst threats. It's just a 3-power creature for 3. It's practically a limited card, but it still does attack for damage. Dmitry drew a Scryland, which is pretty nice. He did push the card to the bottom,
I
though,
didn't see
so
what it was.
presumably it's not a land. Lars building up his mana base. He's fairly far ahead. This
All right, here's a Duress.
Yeah, which is not backbreaking. I mean, Dmitry has double Revelation. Taking the Elspeth is decent, but Lars already has a Hero's Downfall, so Elspeth wasn't necessarily going to be a game breaker. Lars could actually consider not casting Duress here.
I mean, doesn't it just end up being one of those things, though, where when you draw Duress and then another Duress and then another Thoughtseize, you just grind him down with your...
Yeah, I mean, that is good.
But you can save it for the turn you want to resolve something important.
Yeah, like if
Sure.
Lars, let's say Lars draws Sire of Insanity, he wants to be able to hit both in the same turn.
Gotcha.
So Dmitry
not
did
bad.
choose to fire a Rev for 1, even though he
found Revoke.
He played a land last turn. He found the Revoke, though, so that is what he's looking for. So Lars actually could be in trouble now.
Found Revoke and Detention Sphere between the Rev and his draw phase.
He's not going to do anything, though. So he's prioritizing the Sphinx's
What?
Revelation here, or the keeping up Syncopate?
He's got to be really worried about Sire of Insanity. That's the only thing I can think of.
Wow.
He's concerned that,
But he can Syncopate that, at least in his
Right, well,
mind,
that's why, not if he revokes.
yeah, if he revokes, he can only syncopate for 2.
Right, I gotcha.
And so Lars, he's worried about Lars playing a Sire. So Dmitry...
And now here comes Duress.
Here's Duress, but what is Lars clearing the way for
I think
here?
I fire a Rev for 2 here. I mean, you have 2 answers to Underworld Connections, and you have an Elspeth, so if you draw 2 cards, I think that's actually decent. Though he is still worried about Sire of Insanity.
Right.
Which
But he'll take the Syncopate if he's got Sire of Insanity.
Exactly. So, though I guess Syncopate's decent here still. It still stops the Desecration Demon, though I guess so does the Ultimate Price. So, if you're Lars, I think you're looking at taking Sphinx's Revelation. That's the card you're most likely to be losing to right now.
Yeah, so Dimitri's in this situation where if he lets this resolve,
Which he did.
which he did,
Yeah.
so if there's a Sire, you're going to lose your Syncopate. If there's not a Sire, you're probably going to lose your Rev.
Yeah. I think, again, my inclination, I mean, we know that Lars doesn't have Sire, so it's a little
Right,
unfair.
exactly.
So we're not in that mindset. I think Dmitry might be losing too much value by playing around Sire. Lars has 2 Sires total. It's not like he's guaranteed to have one.
Right.
So, I don't know. I'd be tempted to have just fired off Revoke and then, or given that you didn't fire off Rev for 2, just, run these lines of play. That,
Yeah, instead he's going to wind up just doing nothing with these 5 mana.
Yeah. Which is tough. I mean, he's behind on the cards. The game is certainly not over. Lars is still not really attacking Dmitry. Dmitry's at 10 from the Mutavault, and like Thoughtseize and whatnot.
Well,
but
what do you take here if you're Lars? You know Lars's hand. You're allowed to know Lars's hand from this side of the table.
I think I would take Revelation. That seems like the card that you're most likely going to lose to because you're not pressuring Dmitry enough.
He takes Detention Sphere.
Interesting. He took one of the redundant answers here to the Underworld Connections.
At least Dmitry can't answer Mutavault. Ultimate Price has drawbacks.
It does.
And then I think you run out the Desecration Demon too.
Into the Syncopate. Or the Ultimate Price.
Well, given how Dimitri's been playing, I don't think he's as worried about Desecration Demon as he is Sire.
Now he's going to fire Rev for 2?
Yeah, because this way, if he hits a land, he can Elspeth, or, wow, he hit a Supreme Verdict here. Gee, still no lands, though.
Still no land.
So now he has to decide whether how wrecked he wants to get. He can't play around Sire forever. Like, he knows this.
He's going to revoke an ultimate price.
Yeah,
he's going to revoke in Detention Sphere, or Detention Sphere? Or
I like
Ultimate
Price. I
Yeah,
think.
of course.
Price has less targets.
Exactly.
Of course.
You could, probably won't, you could try to block Mutavault with Mutavault, then cast Ultimate Price, but that animating in Mutavault seems very, very risky. So this is a big draw step for Lars. I mean, this is the turn where Lars can draw something awesome.
How about a replacement Underworld?
Yeah,
that qualifies.
That counts, yeah.
It's not. I mean, it can get. There's a Detention Sphere, a new Detention Sphere in Dmitri's hand, though. But yeah, that's about.
But again, Dmitry spending 3, Lars spending 3, and Lars drawing an extra card is so much more profitable for Lars here.
Fair. Especially, I mean, 2 revs down. He's only got 2 left in his deck.
Yeah, so this is an attack for 8.
He is going to activate
answer.
No,
he's just going to ultimate price here. Take down the Desecration Demon. Only take 2, dropping Dmitry down to 8. Things are getting significantly more nervous for Dmitri's side here, especially as that Underworld Connections is keeping that background pressure going by drawing Lars more and more cards. Though, thankfully for Dmitry, Lars still hasn't really found that big hit. And Lars still cannot, Dmitry still cannot find a land, though he is drawing a lot of his best stuff for this matchup. He's not going to fire off the Sphinx's Revelation main phase here, though, to try to hit that land drop.
Wow.
And that land that he pushed on turn 2
Yeah, that
really stings here. He'd be a lot better off with 6.
I don't think you can just pass the turn there. It's tough. I mean, again, he's
You would what?
He's
Detention
leaving up
Sphere the connections?
I think so. He's leaving up Syncopate, but at this point, Lars has 10 lands in play.
Right.
Lars can't really realistically get Syncopated.
Right.
And if Dimitri's planning on casting a Revelation here, then he's missing his land drop. So it seems pretty tough.
Yeah, here's an Erebos now for Lars as the pressure just continues to mount. He's also got a Gray Merchant in his hand.
Cannot syncopate the Erebos. He's got exactly the 4 he needs to pay.
So Dimitri's just going to have to rev in response, I think.
Yep.
Make sure he gets the life gain out of the deal. He's going to Revelation for 2.
Land revoke. Not bad.
All right.
Okay, so he found...
Dimitri actually could be clawing his way back in this.
Jeez, yeah.
It is close.
Next turn, he's making his land drop, and he's going to get to kill both of Lars's permanents. But
or leave up syncopate again.
You're right. But Lars is going to get to draw 2 cards off Erebos right away. So
Lars's life total is not exactly high.
I guess he doesn't get to draw infinite.
He does have that Gray Merchant in his hand, which is going to help buffer.
Yeah. The fact that Dmitry is, still on 5 lands while Lars is on 10 lands now, about to be 11 lands soon, that is tough. I mean, that's not the mana ratio you want when you're playing Esper.
When you're playing Esper.
Yeah, your cards don't do very much on 5 mana. Like the Revelations that have been cast so far have been for like 1/2/2 here. So Lars now thinking, do you draw 2 cards? Do you attack with Mutavault? Dimitri's at 10. I mean, attack with Mutavault is pretty nice here, but you have to assume Erebos might just die this turn.
I mean, Dimitri's sitting there on 7 cards in hand, having just drawn 2. He's going to have 8 when it goes to his turn. He knows that at least 5 of them are spells. And it's a Mutavault also drawn for Dmitry, so he's got a couple of lands coming in here. And he's going to use Elspeth here. So Elspeth makes 3 tokens and passes a turn back. So he's relatively safe here. He's not going to take any damage next turn, basically.
Well, he doesn't seem to care about Lars paying life to draw cards.
If Lars finds Night Veil Spectre, Dimitri's just dead. So there we have it.
He's just dead?
To Gray Merchant. Dimitri's at 8.
Oh, right, because of Gray Merchant.
Plays Night Veil Spectre, then plays Gray Merchant.
So Dmitry, though, at least looking to not die on board here.
Right, but I mean, Lars... I don't think he's going
to...
Yeah, I don't think he's going to give up the opportunity to do this. I mean, there's not even any reason to attack first or use Underworld Connections.
Right, this is it.
Wow.
Lars Dam.
The train keeps rolling.
Setting up lethal here, and that's going to do it. Dmitriy Butakov is out. We will not have a repeat champion, but a smile there from Lars says, I'm in the finals.
Yeah.
So great stuff there. A nice close game and a nice close match. We got to 3 there. And a handshake there from
There you
our
go.
former champion, maybe shaking the hand of our next champion. It's either going to be him or Corey. We do not know yet. Welcome back to the booth, guys. Marshall Sutcliffe here with Luis Scott Vargas and Randy Bueller. And we've had some great magic already. We've still got one more match to go today. It's the finals. We're going to give our players a couple of minutes to decompress, take a breath. You know, this is, this happens quickly, right?
Yeah.
I mean, once Lee Sharp hits that button,
Boom.
the match starts. You know, there's not, you know, if you go to a pro tour, there's a little bit of a gap. There's some, you know, some
Somebody
scorekeeper
always goes to
stuff.
extra time.
Yeah, somebody goes to
Exactly.
time. But here it's like next, you know, so we're going to make sure that we give them a minute. Why don't we go down to an interview? Brian David Marshall is with Lars Dam right now.
Hi, everybody. Brian David Marshall here on the floor of the Magic Online Championship, and I'm here with Mitgo finalist Lars Dam. Lars, how's this feeling for you?
This is feeling pretty good. It's good. It's nice to win. It always is.
So tell us a little bit. I mean, how did that match play out for you? I mean, you certainly made Sire of Insanity look pretty good there in one of the games.
Yeah, he did what he was supposed to do, like get rid of the hand and then pretty much just win from there.
So, you of all the players at this event, you actually have the most Pro Tour experience. 9 Pro Tours played in, or 11 Pro Tours played in?
Yeah, it says 11. I'm not sure it's 11 Pro Tours. They might be counting Worlds as Pro Tours or something like that.
Yeah. So what are you thinking about as you head into this finals? You think about a possible seat at the World Championship. What would that mean for you?
It would mean I would probably try and play some more Pro Tours in the future. Like right now, I'm not planning on going to Atlanta unless I win here. But if I win this next game, I will go to Atlanta as well.
So are you qualified for Atlanta?
Yeah, I mean, you qualify for the MOX, so you qualify for at least one Pro Tour.
Sure.
And that is Atlanta for me.
Okay. Were you saving it for something else?
No, it's just that it's a very long trip for me to go to a Pro Tour, and I don't have any of the physical cards, so it just becomes a huge hassle to go to a Pro Tour. And as you said, I've been to like 11 of them already. I don't feel I need to just go to a Pro Tour just to go. So unless I really want to go there, it's not something I was really looking to do. I'm also never playing like PTQs on Moto, for example, because I don't really want to go just to go.
So this is a double big stakes match for you here. Then it qualifies you for the World Championship and sort of qualifies you for Atlanta.
Yeah, in a way, yes.
What do you think about your finals matchup here? What are you expecting in your matchup against Corey?
I'm expecting it comes down a lot to what he does on his turn 3. Like if he has Thassa, it's a bad matchup for me. Or it turns into a bad matchup. If he doesn't have that, I think I'm favored. So it depends mostly on his draw, I think, more than mine.
Do you have any? If he gives you turn 3 Thassa, do you have a plan for that?
Not one I'm going to tell right now.
Okay.
I will try and win even if he does that, of course. It's not like I just give up and scoop the game.
Sure.
So I will keep fighting it through it if I can.
Okay. All right, Lars, thank you. This is Brian David Marshall, sending it back to the booth.
Hey guys, welcome back to the booth. Marshall Sutcliffe with Luis Scott Vargas and Randy Bueller. So we've got a couple of minutes to chat. Let's set up our finals. Why don't we take a look at the bracket? This is our top 4 bracket to see how these players got here. For those of you that are just tuning in, we just played our 2 semifinal matches back to back, and now we are entering into the finals at about 10 minutes away. We're going to be on there. So why don't we take a look at the bracket? Here it is. So Lars Dam on the top with black-red devotion, and he was playing against Dmitriy Butakov. That's the one that we just saw. And Lars, Corey also won. So Corey with his mono blue devotion with a little bit of white, and then the black devotion with a little bit of red is going to set up our finals. Why don't we take a look? Actually, we've got a few messages for you here. Let's not go to the messages. Okay. So we've got... So right now we have these 2 guys going into the finals. Why don't we take a look at their deck lists? I want to see what the matchup looks like from you guys, and I want to get opinions on how post-boarded games are going to be looking like as well. So the players got here through playing Modern, Cube. They also played Born of the Gods Limited and Standard, but Standard is the focus now that we're in the finals here. So this is Lars Dam's deck list here. Mono black A little bit of red.
Yeah, and the red he's got is not impactful in this matchup. I mean, Sire of Insanity is not the card you want against the Blue Devotion decks here. So it's basically just mono black that's playing Temple of Malice and sometimes takes extra damage off its Blood Crypts.
Okay.
So slightly better for Corey that Lars has the red splash than if he just had a bunch of swamps or random temples.
Okay, but as far as like big impact goes, this isn't the matchup that the red's for.
No. The red is almost solely for the Esper matchup.
For the Esper matchup that he just got here with.
I mean, I imagine Sire could be okay in other matchups, but Esper is really the matchup where you want it. So it's still a Black Devotion deck. I mean, that's still the sort of deck that can just kill all your creatures, and that's what Lars' plan is. He's use a Thoughtseize or a Bile Blight to deal with some of the things Corey plays earlier, and just play a Desecration Demon or drain him out with Grey Merchants.
I mean, if you ignore the splash, you're still a Pack Rat Thoughtseize deck, and Black Devotion seemed to have the edge against Blue Devotion, right?
It's pretty close. I mean, I think that
it's not a huge edge. But
no, that definitely comes down to like how the decks are built. I think the Detention Spheres they make me feel a lot better about the matchup.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that when it was mono black versus mono blue, I thought that black had the edge. But as we'll see in Corey's deck list, that white splash, those Detention Spheres, they were spectacular in the semifinals.
Right.
This is the matchup there for. So it's like the Black Devotion list added a splash of red to help out the Esper matchup. The Blue Devotion list added a splash of white to help out this matchup, which he's got in the finals.
That's right. So maybe we can take a look at Corey's list there. And again, splashing white, one of the flashy cards that we saw in the first semifinal was Ifara, God of the Pullets. There's only one in the deck. Is that a big deal in this matchup?
It's a fine card. If you resolve it and you're not under pressure, I think Corey will eventually win the game because it's just every time you play a creature, you draw an extra card. Or rather, every turn you play a creature, you draw an extra card. So, I mean, that's big. But mostly, like we saw in his first match against Tomash, it's Detention Sphere.
Yeah, it's Detention Sphere.
It stops you from losing to those Pack Rat draws. It can still kill, Desecration Demon. So it kind of like shores up all the things that the blue deck could have problems with.
Okay, now one of the things that we just heard Lars say was that he said it depends a lot on what happens on turn 3 for Corey, and he seemed to put a lot of emphasis on Thassa.
Well, that's because the Black Devotion deck can't actually kill Thassa once it's in play. I mean, there's barring double Bile Blighting an active Thassa, which kills all the other Thassas too. I don't think that the Black Devotion deck really has a realistic way of dealing with it. I mean, Thassa isn't unbeatable, but it is much harder to beat. All of Corey's other threats, that Lars can eventually Hero's Downfall or Devour Flesh, that sort of thing. I guess that's another way to kill Thassa. If there's 2 other non-creature permanents, like 2 Detention Spheres and a Bident, you can Devour Flesh the Thassa.
Yes, you can.
For the most part, it's hard to hit.
It doesn't happen very often, but it does pop up occasionally. How do you guys see this matchup from a big picture perspective? Is there a big gap between Game 1 and the sideboarded games? We mentioned that Lars has some red cards in his sideboard, mainly aimed at the Esper decks, not really going to come in here. Does he have any other, kind of silver bullets? Maybe we can take a look at the sideboards from these players just to get a little foreshadowing for what we're going to see in the next few games. But do you guys see anything? We have the list in front of us here as well that are, kind of daggers for the other deck.
Domestication out of Corey's deck, if he brings that in to take Nightveil Specters and Lifebane Zombies, that can be a pretty big swing. The black deck has no way to kill Domestication without losing card advantage. I mean, it can just kill the creature, but you're down a card.
But you're down a card by doing that. So that's going to be a big one.
So, yeah, if you look at Lars, he just has more removal spells. I mean, he can bring in Doomblade or Ultimate Price. He can bring in more Pack Rats and Lifebane Zombies. Those are a little better than cards like Erebos. But Detention Sphere throws a wrench to the Pack Rat plan. And all the removal spells, I mean, Corey already has to play against a bunch of removal spells.
Right. Randy, what do you think about the sideboard plans here?
Yeah, no, I think Lars doesn't get to he gets to customize the edges around the edge of his deck. He doesn't get to fundamentally change his strategy. Whereas Corey, I agree with Luis. I think that if we flip to Corey's sideboard, you'll see the most impactful sideboard card anybody's got is probably those Domestications.
And he also brought in Jace Memory Adept against Tomash. We saw that happen because we saw it in sideboard.
That's true.
And it looks like Corey's just ready to play an attrition battle. He's ready to just get 2-for-1 or like try to 2-for-1 Lars as many times as he can. Whether it's
that's a good point. I think actually that often the mono blue deck, the Blue Devotion deck, especially the mono blue version, it plays like a beatdown deck.
Right.
Like it's slow in terms of aggressive clocks, but it's just play a guy, play a couple of guys, play Master of Waves. It just gets all of these creatures in play and is capable of just swarming the opponent with this sort of slightly more drawn out, slightly more resilient beatdown strategy. But in the black matchup, because the black deck is able to just kill creature, kill creature, kill creature, it does become grindy. That's why Thassa matters so much. If the black from the black side, if you're trying to kill all the creatures and your opponent is just never drawing lands and always, pushing the lands to the bottom to draw the spells, you can fall behind. So I think with this sideboarding plan, you see Corey acknowledging, yeah, okay, after, this matchup goes grindy. I'm not really a beatdown deck here. I need to be able to win the long grindy game, and Domestication is an awesome 2-for-1. Even Jace Memory Adept can win a grindy game, can just turn into this victory condition that's hard to attack.
And we saw him bring in rapid hybridization as well, which lets him
make sure he doesn't lose to pack rats.
And lets him kill Desecration Demon, or even Lifebane Zombie. Lifebane Zombie is unblockable. It's not something else to deal with. And rapid hybridization does lose you a card because you traded one for him, but they get a 3/3. But if you're ahead because of domestications and Jaces, then you can afford to do that.
You can afford to do that and take out a key threat that you can now deal with.
Yeah, it's funny. We keep talking about how it's Edge Corey game 1 with the detention spheres, Edge Corey after sideboarding. They played in the Swiss.
Yes.
Lars won 2-0.
He did. He beat Corey 2-0 in the 13th round. So
Lars did not do a lot of losing in the Swiss portion of this tournament.
No, he didn't.
It was Corey's only loss on day 2, right? He did the 6-1 to come back to make the Final Four off a 3-4 start. But yeah, Lars, part of that, just wrecking ball of a Swiss performance from him was he beat Corey. I think that may have actually been the match that clinched it for Corey. I mean, they played in standards. It was just as Lars was cementing his spot at the top of the Swiss.
Yeah, and honestly, even though we can talk about edges, Standard is really a format of very small edges. There are not very many 80-20 matchups in Standard. That's just generally not how the cards play out.
And this one's no exception.
Yeah, I don't believe it is.
Do you have a favorite out of this, or do you think it's very, very close?
If I had to pick a favorite, I'd say Corey's slightly favored. I mean, I think that his splash is very good in this matchup, whereas Lars is actually giving up a little percentage by playing Blood Crypt in his deck and could draw the Sire game 1.
Right.
And Corey, I think, has a slightly better sideboard plan. I mean, he just gets more upgrades and cards that add new dimensions, whereas Lars is just taking out his less good cards for slightly better cards that do very similar things.
Yeah, in game 1, Lars is fairly well set up. All of his removal spells are live. We saw in the previous match against Budkov, he couldn't wait to get a lot of those spot removal spells out. But, against Corey, he's going to be able to have targets for those consistently throughout the course of the first game and of course, going forward as well. All right, well, I'm told the players are ready to go. So why don't we head down to the feature match area right now. It's time for the finals here from the Magic Online Championship.